All right, so we're diving into Mannaflux today. It's this natural supplement, right? And it's supposed to be for weight management, at least that's how it's been marketed. We're looking at this one person's experience. They shared their whole journey online. So we want to see what we can learn from that.
Well, one thing that really jumps out is how this person was super drawn to the fact that Mannaflux is, you know, all natural.
Right.
Like that was a huge selling point for them.
Yeah, definitely. They talk about wanting something to help them manage their weight, obviously, but they really didn't want to go the route of harsh stimulants
Yeah.
or anything synthetic.
I can see that. It's a big trend these days.
Totally. And they actually specifically call Mannaflux a dietary supplement. But what does that even mean, really?
Well, honestly, dietary supplement is a pretty broad term.
Okay.
It can be used for a whole bunch of different products.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Everything from like your basic vitamins and minerals to herbs, botanical extracts, you name it. In this case, with Mannaflux, it seems to be like a blend of different ingredients, and they're all marketed for, their potential weight management benefits.
Okay, so that makes sense. But I guess, are there regulations around this stuff?
So that's the thing. Regulations for dietary supplements, they aren't as strict as, say, prescription medications.
So it's kind of buyer beware.
In a way, yeah. And it's always smart to do your own research and not just take everything at face value.
Totally agree. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. This person specifically mentions two ingredients, Egyptian blue vervain and sacred licorice root.
Interesting.
Do those ring a bell at all? Are those common in weight management supplements?
Well, Egyptian blue vervain, that one has a long history. It's been used in herbal medicine for ages.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it's associated with all sorts of potential benefits like helping with digestion and promoting relaxation.
Interesting.
Now, sacred licorice root, that's another intriguing one. It's often used to soothe the digestive system and might even have some anti-inflammatory properties.
Huh, okay. So not your typical fat-burning ingredients then, I guess.
Not really, no. Neither of those are typically considered like the primary ingredient for weight management.
Right.
But, it is kind of interesting to think about how they might play a supporting role.
How so?
Well, for example, some research suggests that Egyptian blue vervain could actually influence certain hormones related to appetite.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And with sacred licorice root, if it really does have anti-inflammatory properties, you can imagine how that might contribute to a healthier metabolism.
Makes sense. So maybe they work more indirectly than just attacking fat cells directly.
Potentially, yeah.
Interesting. And it sounds like that's what this user was into, right? That whole natural, holistic approach. They even say they were skeptical at first, but they decided to give it a try anyway. So what happened?
Well, according to what they shared, they started taking Mannaflux. And within 2 weeks, they started noticing changes.
Oh, wow. 2 weeks. That's pretty fast. What kind of changes are we talking about?
They mentioned feeling less hungry throughout the day
Okay.
and having fewer cravings, for snacks and stuff.
Oh.
And they also said their energy levels were more stable, which is something a lot of people look for in a weight management solution.
So they felt like it was working. I mean, that's pretty encouraging, especially in such a short amount of time.
It is definitely interesting. But we have to remember, this is just one person's story.
Of course, yeah.
Individual responses to supplements, they can be all over the place.
Makes sense. Everyone's different, right? What works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly. You've got genetics, lifestyle, overall health, all these factors come into play.
Right, right. And something we always say on the show, talk to your doctor before starting any new supplement, right? Especially if you have any health conditions.
Absolutely. Always a good idea.
Or if you're taking other medications.
For sure. Get that personalized advice.
All right, so we've established this person had a good initial experience with Mannaflux, but what about the long term? I mean, they were only 2 weeks in, but the whole idea of sustainable weight management is a big part of their marketing. What does that even mean, though?
That's a great question. Sustainable weight management, it's about more than just losing a few pounds quickly.
Right. It's got to be more than that.
Yeah, it's about making changes that'll help you maintain a healthy weight over time, for the long haul.
So it's less about a quick fix and more about, I don't know, a lifestyle change.
Exactly. A more holistic approach to health and well-being. It usually involves a bunch of different things, like making healthier food choices, being more active, managing stress, all that good stuff.
And how does Mannaflux fit into all of that?
Well, that's what we need to figure out, right? Does it actually help with those key elements of sustainable weight management?
Good point. That's something to think about. So we're back and talking about Mannaflux. We know it's marketed as this natural supplement for weight management, and we've been going over this one user's experience. They were happy with those first couple weeks, but is it really as good as they say? Does it actually live up to that sustainable weight management idea?
That is the question, isn't it? And to really get to the bottom of that, I think we need to look beyond just one person's story.
Yeah, you're right. One story is interesting, but it's not exactly hard evidence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What we really need is some solid research. You know, like, are there studies out there on Mannaflux specifically? And what about those individual ingredients? Have they been tested? Do we know if they actually work for weight management?
That's a good point. I would think if the company's making these claims, they gotta have something to back it up, right?
You would hope so.
Yeah.
Ideally, you'd want to see some well-designed studies, you know, the kind that get published in those legit scientific journals. Something that looked at, weight loss, appetite control, metabolic rate, things like that.
Yeah, and I guess we'd also want to see more than just one person's experience, right? Like, what about hundreds or even thousands of users?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Getting that bigger picture is crucial. Online reviews, forums, those independent consumer reports, they can all be helpful, but you got to remember they can also be biased.
So take everything with a grain of salt, basically.
Pretty much.
Okay, so what about side effects? This user we've been talking about, they didn't mention any, but are there risks to taking Mannaflux?
That's another important thing to think about. Just because something is natural doesn't automatically mean it's 100% safe.
That's true. Natural doesn't always equal safe.
Exactly. Even natural ingredients can have side effects or interact with medications, especially if you're taking high doses or using it for a long time.
So if someone's listening and thinking, okay, Mannaflux sounds interesting, but I need more info, what would you tell them? Like, where should they go? What resources are out there?
I always recommend starting with those reputable scientific databases like PubMed or even Google Scholar. You can search for specific ingredients or just the general concept of natural weight management. See what comes up.
That's a good starting point if you want to see what the actual research says.
Right. And beyond that, look for independent consumer organizations, the kind that provide unbiased reviews and ratings of supplements. You want to see what other users are saying, both the good stuff and the bad.
That makes sense. Like we said, one person's experience isn't always the whole story.
Exactly. And don't forget about your doctor. Talking to them is always a good idea. They can give you personalized advice based on your health history and any meds you might be taking.
Always a good reminder. It's easy to get caught up in the hype, especially with all these health and wellness products.
Absolutely. But like we've seen today, it's always good to be informed and to think critically.
For sure. So stepping back for a minute, we've been focusing on Mannaflux, but what are some other natural approaches to weight management that people are trying?
Oh, there's so many options out there. Herbal teas, certain spices, even specific foods have all been used traditionally to support weight management.
And some of those might actually have more research behind them than a supplement like Mannaflux.
It's possible. Green tea, for example, has been studied a lot, and there's some promising results in terms of boosting metabolism and aiding weight loss. And there's more and more research coming out about the benefits of certain spices like turmeric or ginger.
Interesting. So those are worth exploring too.
Definitely. And I think it's important to remember that weight management isn't just about what you eat or what supplements you take. It's also about your mindset, your relationship with food, your overall lifestyle.
It's about the whole picture, making changes that support both your physical and mental health.
Exactly.
So we started with this one person's Mannaflux journey, but we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have. We've talked about the importance of critical thinking, the need for scientific evidence, and all those different natural approaches to weight management.
It's been a good reminder that there's no quick fix or magic bullet when it comes to weight loss.
Absolutely. It's all about finding what works for you, making informed choices, and being in control of your own health journey.
I like that. So as we wrap up part 2 of our Mannaflux deep dive, what's the one thing you'd want our listeners to take away?
That's a good question. I think the most important thing is to be curious. Ask questions. Don't just accept everything you hear. Do your research and remember knowledge is power when it comes to making decisions about your health.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay tuned for part 3.
Man, there's a lot more to this Mannaflux thing than I initially thought.
Yeah.
We've talked about the ingredients, what that one user experienced, and just like the whole world of natural weight management. But what about our listeners? What are you guys thinking about all of this?
You know, it's really interesting how this one person's story sparked all these different conversations. Like, it really shows how important it is to not just take things at face value. Yeah, you got to dig a little deeper, right? Look at things from different angles.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what the deep dive is all about, right? We take one source and use it to launch into this bigger exploration.
I like that.
So if someone's out there listening, they're like, okay, Mannaflux sounds kind of cool, but I need to know more. Where would you send them? Like, what are some good resources they can check out?
Well, first off, I always recommend those reputable scientific databases. PubMed, Google, Skull are places like that. You can search for studies on specific ingredients or just on the general topic of natural weight management. See what's out there.
That's a good place to start if you want to see the research.
Exactly. And beyond that, I'd say look for those independent consumer organizations, the ones that offer unbiased reviews of supplements, because you want to see what other users are saying, both the good and the bad.
Right, because like we said, one person's experience might not be everyone's experience.
Yeah, totally. And of course, never underestimate the value of talking to your doctor. They can give you advice that's tailored to you based on your health history and all that.
Always a good reminder. It's easy to get swept up in the excitement with all these health products out there.
Oh, for sure. But like we've been talking about today, it's so important to be informed and to think critically about all of it.
Well said. This has been a great deep dive. We started with one person's Mannaflux story and ended up exploring so much more.
We really did. From critical thinking to scientific evidence to all those different natural approaches people are trying.
And a good reminder that there's no magic solution when it comes to weight loss.
Definitely not. It's all about finding what works for you, making good choices, and being proactive about your health.
That's a great takeaway. All right, well, that wraps up our Mannaflux deep dive. Any final words for our listeners?
Just stay curious. Keep asking questions. And don't be afraid to do your own digging. When it comes to your health, knowledge really is power.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and as always, keep diving deep.